The cup of chamomile tea on the table was still warm when Katherine Monroe vanished from the quiet Medford Drive neighborhood in Dallas, Texas. Population 13,412. The first Friday in June arrived with the dry, scorching heat of the South and a sky turning brassy over the low rooftops. At 6:15 p.m., Katherine's neighbor, Mrs. Helen Boyd, waved goodbye through the kitchen window as the 22-year-old medical secretary stepped across the narrow brick walkway separating their two classic-style homes. Katherine said she was stopping by Wynn's grocery at the end of the street to pick up a few things for dinner and would be back before dark. Mrs. Boyd watched, seeing the young woman's pale yellow dress fade into the last light of the Texas afternoon. What happened in the next 47 minutes would haunt Dallas for more than half a century. Before diving deeper into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest cases. Dallas, summer of 1962. The southern heat lingered all day, the late afternoon sun reflecting off the low roofs of the Medford Drive neighborhood, where most residents were civil servants, teachers, and hospital staff. The small, quiet, orderly street had each house with neatly trimmed lawns and identical white fences. This was a place where people knew every face, where even a small change stood out. In the house at 714, 22-year-old Katherine Monroe was preparing to leave after work. She was a medical secretary at Dallas Memorial Clinic, described by colleagues as punctual, careful, and rarely out in the evenings. That day was Friday, and Mrs. Ruth Monroe, her mother, remembered that her daughter was wearing a pale yellow dress, carrying a small purse, and said she would walk to Wynn's grocery at the end of the street to buy a few things for the weekend dinner. She left the house while the sun hadn't fully set, light still lingering on the hot sidewalk, and the sound of crickets rising from the back lawns. The next-door neighbor, Mrs. Helen Boyd, saw Katherine pass by and waved back, thinking she was just stepping out for a few minutes as usual. No one in the neighborhood had any reason to pay extra attention. As night fell, around early evening, Mrs. Ruth realized her daughter hadn't returned. At first, she thought maybe she had stopped by a friend's or stayed late at work to finish the books. An hour later, when the clinic's phone went unanswered and coworkers said they hadn't seen her since the end of the shift, a sense of unease began to spread through the family. Mrs. Ruth and Katherine's younger sister walked the street, checking the corners, asking nearby houses if anyone had seen her after the afternoon. No one had any information. The neighborhood's atmosphere became strange, quiet enough to hear the ceiling fans inside homes, and the sound of cars fading on the distant highway. When the clock neared midnight, the family returned home, everything still in place, the door locked, the kitchen light off, Katherine's bed showing no sign of being slept in, her spare purse and coat still hanging in their usual spot. There were no signs of forced entry or disturbance, but also no note or any indication that she had left intentionally. After many hours with no news, Mrs. Ruth Monroe decided to pick up the phone and call the Dallas Police Department to report that her daughter, Katherine Monroe, was missing. That call was logged at the Dallas Police switchboard late on the night of June 8, 1962. The operator, following procedure, asked for basic information: the missing person's full name, age, residential address, description of clothing when she left home, and the time she was last seen. The woman's voice on the other end trembled, trying to stay calm as she repeated each detail. The initial report was quickly typed up and transferred to the shift log at the North Dallas Area Command. Under the rules at the time, cases of adults absent for less than 24 hours were usually not considered urgent missing persons. However, since the reporter was a direct relative, the file was still marked temporary follow-up. When the night shift ended, the record was handed over to the police department's administrative division the next morning. On the second floor, Chief Henry Bolton scanned the incident list and paused at the last line. Missing person report, female, 22 years old, Katherine Monroe. Address 714 Medford Drive, cause undetermined. He nodded and assigned the area manager lieutenant to forward the case to the Civilian Investigations Office. By noon that day, Detective Frank Dillard was called in to take the assignment. Dillard, 38 years old, with 15 years of experience at Dallas PD, had handled many civilian cases and missing persons and was a stickler for procedure. He was instructed to open the initial investigation file, temporary case number 6218C, and report within 3 days on any unusual signs. The chief also directed contact with the unit responsible for the Medford Drive area, where Lieutenant Alan Reeves worked, for coordination support. At that point, no one in the office knew that Reeves had a personal connection to the missing person. In the internal assignment log, the case was clearly noted as adult missing person, cause undetermined. No violent elements. The file was given low priority, only requiring checks on background, financial status, and daily habits of the victim. Dillard read the report carefully and made a to-do list. Visit the Monroe family home, collect statements, check the victim's workplace, verify information at the store she was said to be heading to. He also sent a request to the Area Patrol Division to scan reports of accidents or incidents within a 5-mile radius of Medford Drive on June 8, in case of data matches. By early afternoon, all related documents were clipped into a brown paper folder, stamped in red, missing person. Adult female. A second copy was sent to the area unit office for search coordination. Lieutenant Alan Reeves, in charge of the local patrol team, received the notice requesting assistance in investigating a missing person in his jurisdiction. The report named Katherine Monroe, 22 years old. There was no note about any personal relationship, and Reeves's task was only to verify area information, question nearby neighbors, and report results within 48 hours. That afternoon, the internal memos were retyped and entered into the Dallas Police Department's master log. In the remarks section, the supervisor wrote briefly, "No clear criminal elements, continue monitoring. Adult missing, possible voluntary." Dillard signed off while scheduling the first family interview for the next morning. The office atmosphere was quiet, like any other summer afternoon in Dallas. For the officers on duty, it was just a small file among dozens of other civilian cases. No one that day thought that the adult missing person, cause unknown report, would end up sitting in storage for more than half a century, waiting to be reopened once more. The next morning, Detective Frank Dillard drove to 714 Medford Drive, carrying the temporary file and a scene report form. The street was still quiet, the stifling June air making every movement seem slower. The Monroe family home sat in the middle of the row of small houses, its cream-colored facade faded by the sun. Mrs. Ruth Monroe opened the door, her face weary after a long sleepless night. Inside, Dillard noted everything was neatly arranged, the dining table cleared, windows closed, curtains drawn neatly, no signs of forced entry. He went room by room, jotting in his notebook, no signs of struggle, belongings intact, front door locked in position, back door no pry marks, house clean. Mrs. Ruth said Katherine had not taken any luggage, identification papers or clothing. The closet still held all her work outfits, spare purse and coat, savings, jewelry and bank papers were all in their places. Katherine's room was tidy, the bed made flat, her work schedule notebook still on the desk. Dillard examined closely, finding no letter or sign of intentional departure. He asked again about the time she left, who had seen her, and the direction she mentioned. Mrs. Ruth answered in a tired voice. She said she was just going to Wynn's grocery and coming right back. All answers were recorded concisely by Dillard in the report. Around mid-morning, Alan Reeves arrived. He was in police uniform, tie on, carrying an internal file folder. Dillard recognized Reeves from the area office, noting in his book, "Victim's Fiancé, Fellow Officer." Reeves said he was there to assist with area verification as assigned. When asked about the last time he saw Katherine, Reeves said they met the previous afternoon. Had a small argument about travel, then she said she would stay with her mother for a few days. He added that Kate gets emotional easily, sometimes needs to be alone. Dillard recorded it verbatim, without comment. He asked about house keys and transportation. Reeves replied she still had her keys and drove a cream-colored Ford Fairlane, but didn't remember the license plate. Mrs. Ruth interjected, confirming the car was parked on the street that evening, but gone by morning. Dillard noted vehicle location undetermined. He continued around the house, checking windows, kitchen, and backyard. The garden soil was dry, no strange footprints, trash bin untouched. He recorded the weather in the report. Hot and sunny, ground dry, no rain, favorable conditions for scene observation. Before leaving, Dillard examined the back door the family said was left open last night. The lock was not broken, hinges unscratched, only faint fingerprints on the handle, hard to tell if new or old. He took 2 photos with the department's Polaroid. The preliminary conclusion read, "No signs of forced entry, no items missing, no clear physical evidence, possibility missing person, left voluntarily." Mrs. Ruth objected, saying her daughter had no reason to go anywhere without telling. But Dillard explained regulations required waiting 24 hours from the report before considering it urgent. He left his card and advised the family to report immediately if there was news or contact. Before departing, Dillard stood at the threshold, looking out at the sun-drenched street. Nothing unusual caught his eye, but the neighborhood's quiet made him add a short final line to the report. Missing person unknown cause, requires further follow-up. That same afternoon, after Detective Dillard had left, the Monroe family began organizing their own search with help from a few close neighbors on Medford Drive. Word of Katherine not returning had spread quickly through the small neighborhood, and many were willing to set aside chores to help. Mrs. Ruth Monroe divided them into 3 groups, one along Medford Street, one into the side alleys, the last around the empty lot behind the residences. They carried flashlights, calling her name repeatedly as dusk fell. Dallas in June was stifling, even in the late afternoon, the air almost still, insect sounds mixing with scattered footsteps on the sidewalk. Every house in the area had porch lights on, yellow glows stretching along the street, forming a chain of pale light in the night. In her own backyard, Mrs. Ruth and neighbor Henry Boyd carefully checked around the fence. The back door, which Dillard had noted last night, showed no forced entry, was now slightly ajar, hinges undamaged, but the latch slightly off, as if someone had bumped it. Under the step, Mr. Boyd's flashlight beam hit a small glinting object, a round pearl-colored button, lying close to the edge of the cement foundation. Mrs. Ruth recognized it immediately, saying it was the type of button on the dress Katherine wore when she left. They picked it up, placed it in a paper bag, planning to report it to police the next morning. Back inside, she checked her daughter's closet again. As expected, the pale yellow dress was missing, and the set of buttons was short, one in the second row. This discovery made her more convinced her daughter might have met trouble on the way back, but no one knew the exact route after leaving the grocery. That evening, a few in the neighborhood offered to drive around nearby areas. They drove along the main road to Highway 75, turned into the small market area, asked open shops if anyone saw a young brunette woman in a yellow dress with a small purse. All answers were the same. No one noticed, no one matched the description. A gas station attendant vaguely remembered seeing a woman walking past early evening, but wasn't sure it was the same person. By the time they returned home, the clock had passed 10 at night. No one in the group found any other sign besides the button. Mrs. Ruth placed the paper bag with the button on the dining table, next to Detective Dillard's card. The next morning, she took the item to the police station to submit. The desk officer made a brief note and gave her a small receipt, confirming voluntarily submitted item, relevance to case undetermined. There were no further notes, and no one took a detailed statement. She returned home feeling let down. In the neighborhood, the search continued informally. 2 young men living at the end of the street took a small truck, drove around the Trinity River bank about 2 miles from the residences. They stopped at low bank sections, shone flashlights into the water, but found nothing. On the opposite side, others checked the grass near the abandoned elementary school where kids sometimes played ball. The ground was hard, no strange footprints or drag marks. All returned empty-handed. By the third day since Katherine vanished, most residents had returned to daily routines, only the Monroe family continuing the search. Ruth called hospitals, churches, and nearby police stations, sending her daughter's description, along with a photo taken in front of the house. Brunette girl, slight smile, wearing a light-colored dress. Each place politely said they would note the information. In Mrs. Ruth's notebook, dozens of phone numbers were scribbled hastily, most yielding no results. By the weekend, neighbors thinned out, interest waned, the neighborhood returned to its old rhythm. The Monroe house doors stayed closed more, curtains drawn all day against the harsh sun. The button was stored by her in a drawer, waiting for police contact. However, many days passed with no calls. The only note in the police file at that time read, "Item recovered at residence, evidentiary value undetermined." In the Medford Drive neighborhood, no one saw or heard anything more about Katherine Monroe. The family and neighbors' spontaneous search ended without yielding any trace or witness that could help understand what happened to the young woman on that early June afternoon. 3 days after Katherine Monroe was reported missing, the Dallas Police Department officially launched a larger-scale search. This decision came after Detective Frank Dillard submitted the scene report and family statements to his superiors, along with a recommendation to conduct a sweep of the surrounding area as the absence exceeds 72 hours. On the morning of June 11, 1962, an investigation team consisting of 8 police officers, 2 North Dallas patrol units, and the city's volunteer rescue unit was mobilized. A temporary headquarters was set up at the old Jefferson High School stadium, about 2 miles from the victim's home. Area maps were spread out on folding tables, marking key points: the Trinity River, Oak Cliff Park, undeveloped vacant lots, and the route connecting Medford Drive to Highway 75. Per the plan, the first team, led by Dillard, would check the residential area and main roads. The second team would search along the riverbank, and the volunteer rescue unit would use wooden boats to scan shallow water sections near the bridge. The Dallas morning was stifling, the sky covered in a light dust haze, temperatures quickly climbing past 90 degrees F. Police split up by sector, calling the victim's name, noting any unusual objects. Within a 1-mile radius of the Monroe home, they found no trace identifiable as Katherine's. Dillard had Wynn's grocery rechecked, the store believed to be her last destination. The owner confirmed remembering a young woman stopping by on a weekend afternoon, buying milk and a box of cake mix, but couldn't recall the exact day. No receipts were kept, and there was no security camera since the store used only a mechanical cash register. When pressed further, he said the woman walked away toward the main road. No vehicle seen with her. Police noted it but lacked enough to confirm it was Katherine. Meanwhile, the second search team moved to the Trinity River area. The summer riverbank was covered in reeds and dry soil. With many shallow sections and slow current, participants worked in pairs, probing sections with sticks, flipping rotten logs, and checking dense bushes. They found a single women's shoe drifting near the bank, faded leather, small size, but the brand didn't match any in the list of Katherine's shoes provided by the family. The item was logged, photographed, and included in a supplemental report. No other evidence appeared. By afternoon, the volunteer rescue group used small motorboats to sweep the river section near Cedar Springs Bridge. The water was still, the surface reflecting blinding sunlight, no unusual floating objects found. Some suggested dragging the bottom with nets, but equipment was limited, so they could only probe with iron hooks. Results negative. The entire Oak Cliff Park area was also swept that day. It was a wooded zone, with many trails and shortcuts to the main road, often used by locals as cut-throughs. Patrol officers walked each path, noting locations with trash or discarded items. A floral handkerchief found near a bench had no markings or bloodstains and was removed from the evidence list. By day's end, Dillard's interim report read, "No body discovered, no physical traces related to the disappearance found. Dry weather conditions, good visibility, no evidence indicating violence." The next day, The search expanded to the vacant land south of Medford Drive, currently being cleared for new homes. Excavators were paused so the police team could probe the surface with sticks and small shovels. They found a small pit with burn ash, but analysis showed only charcoal and wood, no organic traces. The oversight team photographed it and forwarded to Dillard. He noted unrelated to case. Meanwhile, the administrative division completed the summary report for the chief. The 4-page document listed searched areas, personnel involved, number of evidence items collected, and general conclusion, no signs of criminal activity. Victim may have left the living area via personal vehicle or with assistance. The report was signed by Dillard and endorsed by the area commander. The case file remained open, monitoring, with no order for further expansion. After 3 days of activity, the large-scale search ended without specific results. Maps were folded, loose notes clipped into the file. That day's temperature reached 98 degrees F, and as everyone dispersed, the smell of dust and dry grass lingered in the air. In the final day's report, the last line added by Dillard in the remarks column, status, no new discoveries. Voluntary departure not ruled out. After the official search concluded without results, Detective Frank Dillard continued reviewing Katherine Monroe's personal relationships to identify the last person to see her before the disappearance. In the family statement, Mrs. Ruth Monroe said her daughter was engaged to a police officer named Alan Reeves, in the same force as Dillard, but assigned to a different precinct. Reeves had visited the Monroe home multiple times and was close to the family. This information caught Dillard's attention, as no record showed Reeves proactively contacting after Katherine went missing. He sent an internal memo to Dallas PD personnel to verify Reeves's duty log for June 8. Record showed Reeves was off. Evening shift, logged as leaving the unit at 4:15 p.m. This time frame overlapped with when Katherine left home. On June 12, Dillard contacted Reeves for a formal statement. The session took place at the North Branch office, in a small meeting room used for internal discussions. Reeves arrived on time, in neat uniform, appearing calm. Dillard recorded the entire interview in report number 6218C6. Reeves stated that evening he visited Katherine at her home. They had a minor argument about wedding plans and moving. He said after the talk, she became upset and said she wanted to step out for a bit to get some air. According to Reeves, Katherine left around after 6 p.m., walking with a small purse. He said he left shortly after, not knowing where she went. When asked if he had seen her since, Reeves answered, no, adding he thought she might stay with her mother for a few days, as she had done before after arguments. Dillard asked about Katherine's personal vehicle. Reeves said she usually drove the Ford Fairlane, but might have parked it somewhere and walked. All was recorded verbatim. Dillard noted no obvious stress in Reeves, but his composure made him take note. After the interview, Dillard decided to visit Reeves's home for inspection. The house was on the south edge of the city, in a civil servant residential area, similar architecture to others, but the front lawn mowed bare, no car parked outside. Reeves allowed Dillard in, saying nothing to hide. Upon entering, Dillard noted a strong bleach smell in the air, especially in the living room and hallway to the basement. On the wall behind the sofa was a freshly painted patch, brighter than the rest, paint still slightly glossy, indicating recent application. When asked, Reeves said he was fixing up the house and used bleach to clean mold stains. Dillard detailed this in his notebook, also closely observing the floor, which had a few small scratches on the wood, but no pry or break marks. In the kitchen, the sink had a large hospital-grade bleach bottle, cap half open. Dillard asked Reeves to confirm the source. He replied it was taken from the unit's sanitation supplies for floor cleaning. Without legal grounds, Dillard could not collect samples or photograph. He only recorded a summary and completed an internal report sent to superiors that day. In the remarks, he wrote, "No criminal traces found, strong bleach odor in house, possibly from routine cleaning. One wall section recently repainted, no evidence linking to case, Without a search warrant, the scene was not preserved, and the house was not sealed. Dillard only asked Reeves to report any information related to Katherine. Reeves agreed, signed confirmation, and appeared cooperative. Upon returning to the station, Dillard added a private note: Reeves's departure time from unit matches victim's disappearance time. Strong bleach smell in house, freshly painted wall, reason unclear. Recommend informal surveillance for 48 hours. This note was not entered into the official file, only in Dillard's personal log. Over the next 2 days, no new information from Reeves or the Monroe family. The week's summary report was completed, placing the Katherine Monroe case in periodic monitoring. In the police department's interim conclusion, a short line was typed on carbon paper: no evidence confirming crime. Continue monitoring. File temporarily remains open. The report was signed, then set aside in the thick stack of administrative files, where many other missing persons cases had faded into oblivion. Similarly, for the investigation team, the Katherine Monroe case was considered at a temporary halt, lacking grounds to proceed further, but not yet fully closed. Just 1 week later, per the district attorney's office review process, File 6218C was transferred to the Dallas County DA for validation of investigative procedures. Assistant District Attorney Claire Herzog, 26 years old, handling the complex civilian case docket, received the thin file, less than half an inch thick, on the Katherine Monroe disappearance. Upon opening it, she immediately noted basic deficiencies: no interior scene photographs, no house diagram or room layout, no chain of custody evidence log. Detective Frank Dillard's report was clearly written, but purely descriptive. Details about the bleach smell and fresh paint patch in Lieutenant Alan Reeves's home appeared only in his personal log, not the official record. The preliminary assessment section at the end stated no signs of criminal activity, effectively halting further legal action. Claire flagged 3 anomalies: missing photos, missing evidence, and missing sample preservation. She called Dillard, requesting all original documents, including any Polaroids taken at the victim's or Reeves's home. Dillard replied, there were no photos because no evidentiary value was seen, and at Reeves's house, no search warrant existed. Claire recorded this verbatim, then drafted an internal memo requesting re-examination of the Reeves residence via consensual observation, meaning with homeowner consent. That afternoon, she visited Reeves's address with DA paperwork. Reeves opened the door, allowed entry, and appeared cooperative. Claire observed each permitted area, noting the space was clean and orderly, but the bleach odor remained strong, especially in the hallway and stairwell to the basement. Along the stairbase, she saw a dark streak the size of a hand, stretching nearly half a meter, painted over but the new paint brighter than the rest. She tapped lightly with a metal ruler. The surface was uneven, the fresh coat smoother and glossier. Reeves explained he repainted due to mold and used bleach to clean. Claire made no comment, only recorded, measured distances from the streak to fixed points, and sketched a rough diagram. On the nearby wood floor were a few parallel scratches. Reeves said they were from moving furniture. She continued, noting, without collecting samples due to no warrant. Before leaving, she had Reeves sign confirmation that the observation occurred with homeowner consent. Back at the office, Claire filed a report describing the dark streak at the stairbase, pervasive bleach smell, difference between new and old paint layers. She recommended micro-trace sampling at the streak location and adjacent wood floor examination under forensic light. The proposal was sent up for technical support but returned with the note, insufficient legal basis to proceed. Claire attached the report to the file and sent copies to Dillard. When requesting his personal log photocopy, she received the standard response: personal document, not part of official file. To avoid stalling, Claire standardized what she could, compiled question lists, sent letters to the grocery and clinic where the victim worked for written confirmation of last sightings, created a timeline for the day she left. The timeline showed a multi-hour gap between afternoon and evening, the period Reeves described as argued then left, but no physical evidence supported it. On the final page, Claire wrote her assessment: file lacks scene photos, tangible evidence, chain of custody. Supplemental observation at Reeves' residence reveals dark streak at stairbase, likely old stain painted over, other possibilities not ruled out. Without search warrant, and no criminal indicators in current file, no further testing. The report was stamped received, clipped back into file 6218C, and returned to temporary storage, where stagnant missing persons cases awaited new directives. Claire Herzog closed the thin file, writing in her desk log the final line: suspended, no additional evidence. No one in the office then suspected that just days later, a new detail would unexpectedly reopen the case. On the morning of June 14, 1962, a road maintenance worker in North Dallas suburbs called police, reporting an unusually parked vehicle on the shoulder of a service road connecting to Highway 75. The car bore Texas plate 9, J3271, thick dust on the body indicating it had been there at least several days. When the information reached dispatch, vehicle registration confirmed the plate belonged to Katherine Monroe. Area police were dispatched for inspection, including Detective Frank Dillard, still monitoring the disappearance. The discovery site was nearly 8 miles from the victim's home, a low-traffic stretch flanked by dry grass and low trees. The 1960 cream-colored Ford Fairlane was parked neatly against the curb, front tire lightly touching the grass, no collision damage. Doors were locked, all windows fully up. Dillard surveyed the surroundings, no other tire tracks or drag marks. He called a professional locksmith for assistance, then opened the driver's door and inspected inside. The cabin showed no disturbance, leather seats clean, dashboard intact, no stains or foreign objects. On the passenger seat was the victim's small purse containing wallet, driver's license, Idaho card, a notebook, and loose change. All were inventoried, photographed, and bagged as evidence. In the trunk, police found a light jacket, a few grocery items, and a spoiled milk carton. Dillard noted these matched statements about Katherine going to Wynn's grocery before vanishing. He lifted floor mats, checked under seats, no physical signs of foul play, no blood, no drag marks, no sharp objects. The ignition key was not in the slot, nor found in the purse. The area around the car was swept in a 20-meter radius, only indistinct footprints and overlapping faint tire marks, possibly from official vehicles. Dillard ordered full scene photos, sketched the car's position relative to the curb, nose facing south. Upon completion, he radioed headquarters for a tow truck to relocate the vehicle. The scene report was finished that day. The preliminary assessment section read, "No signs of criminal activity. Vehicle properly locked. Personal items intact. Key not located. Reason undetermined." The car was towed to the police impound for technical examination. The forensics unit confirmed locks intact, ignition system untampered, windshield and frame free of cracks or scratches, fuel tank nearly half full, odometer at 42,187 miles, matching the latest inspection record. Dillard noted the driver's seat was pushed back farther than typical for someone 5'3", like Katherine, but this detail received no further review. He sent a summary report on the vehicle discovery to Chief Henry Bolton, with copies to the DA's office. The superior's response was brief: insufficient criminal indicators. Continue monitoring. No investigation expansion until new information. The case file was supplemented with a vehicle appendix, including 8 black and white photos of the Ford Fairlane and an inventory of interior items. In the case log, the final update read, "Vehicle located June 14, 62, no criminal signs, voluntary departure possible." After processing, the car was held in impound for 1 week, then moved to civilian storage as no longer needed for evidence. The Monroe family was notified Katherine's car had been found, but yielded no clues to her whereabouts. Mrs. Ruth visited the lot to confirm, peered through the familiar windows, retrieved the purse and wallet. Everything was clean, as if Katherine had simply parked and vanished. She signed the property receipt, The vehicle was logged as unclaimed property. In subsequent weekly Dallas PD reports, the Katherine Monroe disappearance remained open, but recorded no new investigative actions. Dillard noted internally, vehicle location remote from residence, no foreign evidence, no specific investigative direction at present. The file was clipped shut and returned to the cabinet, awaiting the next review. On June 17, 1962, 3 days after Katherine Monroe's car was discovered, a city sanitation worker named Samuel Porter called the Dallas Police Dispatch to report a suspicious item. While working in a Southside residential area, he found a soiled handkerchief in a metal trash can near 418 Brookside Lane, just 2 houses from Lieutenant Alan Reeves's home. The white cotton handkerchief had 2 pale blue embroidered initials, KM, on the edge. When he picked it up, he noticed multiple dried dark stains, suspected to be blood. So per protocol, he placed the item in a paper bag and turned it in at the area collection point. From there, the report was forwarded to the police department. The evidence unit received the sample and logged it as suspicious item recovered from public area, location near police officer Alan Reeves's residence. The evidence was handed to Detective Frank Dillard, still handling file 6218C. Upon examination, Dillard noted the handkerchief was small, a standard women's type, edging slightly frayed, dark stains concentrated on the lower half, dried and brownish. He sent the sample to the technical lab for stain identification. Given the limited testing capabilities at the time, technicians performed only basic blood grouping via serological reaction. Results confirmed human blood, Group O. No gender or individual identification was possible. The report returned to Dillard stated briefly, preliminary test results, human blood sample, Group O, no further markers. He cross-referenced this with internal personnel data and knew Alan Reeves was also blood type O, as noted in police medical records. However, without formal suspect procedures, no comparison was conducted. In the attached technical remarks, the lab recommended storing the sample in evidence lockup for future testing if the case expanded. The handkerchief was folded, placed in a brown sealed paper envelope, labeled Evidence Hash 47B, and transferred to the Dallas PD Central Storage Vault. In the evidence log, the corresponding entry read, white handkerchief, blue edging thread, initials KM, recovered Brookside Lane, June 17, 62, related to file 6218C. Dillard kept a copy of the sealing report, but filed no independent summary. When questioned at the weekly briefing, he explained there was no evidence linking the item to the victim, and the recovery location was outside the primary search zone. The department's consolidated report added only a short appendix paragraph, handkerchief with blood stains recovered, initials KM, blood type O. Relevance to case undetermined. No further analysis was requested. At that time, Dallas PD had no in-house lab. All biological samples requiring detailed analysis had to be sent to the State Forensic Lab in Austin, a costly and complex process typically reserved for clear homicide cases. Since the Katherine Monroe case remained classified as adult missing person, cause undetermined, the transfer request was indefinitely postponed. Dillard made a brief personal log entry, human blood type O sample, embroidered KM handkerchief, evidentiary value undetermined. Retained sealed for potential re-examination. He made no mention of the blood type match with Reeves. The Monroe family was not informed of this evidence. They were only told police were reviewing some new data. Once the evidence clerk completed processing, the handkerchief was filed in a numbered annual storage box, alongside small items from other unsolved cases. All related paperwork was stamped retain in storage. Do not destroy. By then, the Katherine Monroe disappearance had entered its second week with no clear progress. The handkerchief discovery was the only new item added to the file, but it was quickly deemed peripheral, potentially belonging to anyone. In the weekly report to the chief, the conclusion remained unchanged. No signs of criminal activity, case continues under monitoring. No additional investigative actions until concrete evidence. The blood-stained handkerchief with the KM initials became the sole item officially retained in file 6218C, sealed, numbered, and silently shelved in Dallas police storage, unsuspected as the only detail that would survive decades. On June 19, 1962, while reviewing reports related to police personnel present in the area at the time of Katherine Monroe's disappearance, Detective Frank Dillard received a copy of an internal medical file from the Dallas PD Administrative Division. The document recorded that Lieutenant Alan Reeves, North Dallas Patrol Officer, visited the department clinic on the morning of June 9, just hours after Katherine was reported leaving home and losing contact. The record, prepared by the unit's head nurse, detailed injury to left palm circular, approximately half-inch diameter, light bleeding. Patient stated injury occurred while cleaning personal firearm at home. Wound cleaned with antiseptic solution and pressure bandaged, no signs of infection, no stitches required. Follow-up scheduled in 48 hours. Attached was a handwritten incident cause form by Reeves, dated accordingly. Minor accident at private residence while cleaning weapon, no impact on duty capability. The witness field was blank. Dillard read closely and marked the margin, noting the circular metal object injury matched the medical description but was treated overly simply. In the attending physician's evaluation, an additional note read, possible contact with hot sharp object. This phrasing typically appeared in minor burn cases from exhaust pipes, iron tools, or hot gun barrels. However, no further tests were noted to confirm the exact cause. When Dillard requested verification from Internal Affairs on whether an incident report was filed, he was told, due to minor injury and self-reported off-duty accident, no investigation required. In the personnel log, the matter was classified minor incident, no further action. All related documents were stamped complete the same day. Dillard printed a copy and attached it to the Katherine Monroe file under reference 6218C10. He added a private note, circular left palm injury to Reeves within victim disappearance time frame. Note for attention, however, in the official report to superiors, it was summarized in one line, internal personnel matter, personal firearm accident, no case impact. No order was issued for cross-event comparison. At that era in Dallas PD, internal injury reviews typically ended at the administrative level, absent complaints. Reeves's self-reported gun cleaning accident was deemed plausible, as such incidents were common among officers with personal handguns. Dillard acknowledged this but underlined in red in his personal log. Medical report, possible concealment. He sent an informal inquiry to a private clinic near Reeves's home to verify any visits in that period. The clinic responded via brief letter, no patient records for Alan Reeves in June 1962. All data remained limited to the PD internal medical file. When Assistant DA Claire Herzog, overseeing the file, reviewed the copy, she commented, timing overlap noteworthy, but insufficient evidence to open criminal file. The two agreed to retain the document only as a supplement to the summary report. On June 21, the Administrative Division issued final confirmation, Lieutenant Reeves' personal accident, no internal investigation opened. File closed. Dillard added a marginal note to the original medical document retained with Monroe missing person file for reference. All papers were clipped into the still less than half-inch thick file, temporarily sealed with string. The week's final summary stated, Reeves personnel matter, accident while cleaning gun, no duty impact. No additional internal investigation. After procedures were completed, the matter was officially considered administratively resolved. Nowhere in any report or record did anyone question why a police officer sustained a left palm injury just hours after his fiancée vanished. By November 1962, nearly half a year after Katherine Monroe was reported missing, the case saw virtually no further investigative activity. Supplemental reports were consolidated into a thin file containing family statements, search logs, blood test results from the handkerchief, and a copy of Lieutenant Alan Reeves's medical record. In the quarterly summary meeting, the Dallas PD Civilian Investigations Division reviewed all pending cases. File 6218C was deemed no progress, no criminal elements detected. Chief Henry Bolton signed the closure order on administrative grounds. Adult voluntarily left residence, no evidence of coercion or crime. That terse wording replaced all prior weeks of search efforts. Per department policy, such files were archived in civilian rather than criminal storage, to be reopened only upon new evidence. Assistant DA Claire Herzog, who had monitored the case throughout, received a copy of the closure decision. Upon comparison, she found multiple alterations from the original file she had retained. Sections of Detective Dillard's report were shortened, especially the bleach odor and fresh paint patch descriptions at Reeves's home, now reduced to house clean, no abnormalities. The note on the dark streak at the stair base was entirely deleted. Additionally, the handkerchief report was edited, the embroidered KM entry changed to white handkerchief of unknown origin. Claire immediately backed up all originals in her possession, photocopying each page on the office machine, numbering and clipping them into a separate second file. On the cover, she penciled, "Unedited backup, Monroe case." This was outside official protocol, but the only way to preserve the unaltered record before archival reorganization. In the internal memo, Dillard signed confirmation, no objection to file closure. He knew no physical evidence or new statements could alter the conclusion. All requests to re-examine the scene were denied for lack of legal basis. Finally, on December 5, 1962, the administrative office issued the official notice, Katherine Monroe disappearance. Case 6218C, closed with conclusion, voluntary departure, no criminal signs. File to long-term storage. All related evidence was inventoried and transferred to the department evidence vault. The list contained one entry, white handkerchief, blue thread edging, blood type O. The evidence bag bore a red seal, labeled E47B/6218C. Per procedure, evidence from inactive cases was retained in central storage for at least 10 years before destruction review. However, as this file was closed at year-end, it was batched with documents to the newly established cold case vault for classification convenience. There, the evidence bag was placed in bin 4, third row, north metal shelf. The intake log stated, "Sole evidence related to Monroe case. Do not destroy." In the remarks, the custodian added in ink, "No further investigative direction, retain for potential new matches." That year's end, a copy of the closure decision was mailed to the victim's family. Mrs. Ruth Monroe received the pale yellow printed sheet containing one sentence that stunned her. No evidence of crime, victim may have voluntarily left the city. She tried contacting Detective Dillard again, but he could only say briefly that the order was signed and the case was no longer under his jurisdiction. The less than 1-inch thick file was locked in the Dallas cold case iron cabinet under Code 6218C. Besides the sealed handkerchief, no other evidence represented the entire disappearance. All personnel involved had transferred or taken new assignments. By late December, in the department's master list alongside dozens of other cases, Katherine Monroe was marked closed, voluntary missing. Those dry abbreviations ended half a year of search efforts and marked the point when Katherine Monroe's name gradually vanished from Dallas police news bulletins and weekly reports. In April 2013, the Dallas Police Department launched the Legacy Files Project, an initiative to review unresolved cases from prior decades. This was part of a records modernization plan while applying forensic DNA technology to backlogged cases. A dedicated unit, Cold Case Division, was formed under Central Investigations. In the new team, Detective Sarah Morales, 29, was assigned the Undetermined Cause Disappearances segment for files from 1950 to 1970. Morales, a young investigator from the Criminalistics Unit, had experience with archived records and old evidence handling. She began by auditing hundreds of files being reorganized in the basement storage of the old Lamar Street building. Most documents were yellowed, bindings rotted, many missing evidence or handler information. Among them, a thin file labeled 6218C, Monroe, Katherine, 1962, caught her eye. Inside were a few reports, the closure decision copy, and a single evidence entry, white handkerchief, blood type O. Morales noted this file had been transferred directly from the old cold case vault without re-examination. She contacted Central Evidence to check retention status. After hours of searching, a clerk produced a small metal box labeled 1962. Inside was a brown paper bag sealed with red wax, labeled E47B/6218C. The seal was intact. 1962 custodian signatures still legible. Morales logged the unsealing, video recording the process. Upon opening, she found the neatly folded handkerchief, fabric faded but blue thread, KM edging clearly visible. The lower section had dried brownish stains, the area once noted as blood. She transferred the sample to a new preservation bag, labeled and resealed per current standards. That same day, Morales submitted a request to the Texas State Forensic Lab in Austin for DNA testing on the old biological sample. The application specified purpose, gender determination, and potential SOCODIS database match. Approval came within 48 hours due to legacy files priority. The evidence was transported by secure vehicle to the Austin lab on April 22. Included were a summary of the Katherine Monroe disappearance and all chain of custody documents from 1962 to present. Concurrently, Morales accessed the new electronic archive to input case data. She filled fields: disappearance date, June 8, 1962. Last seen location, Medford Drive, Dallas. Status unresolved. In notes, she added, sole surviving evidence in original seal, blood-stained handkerchief, code E47B. Over the following week, Morales cross-checked other contemporaneous cases. Most lacked evidence or were damaged, making the Monroe case one of the rare instances with testable material. She filed an initial report to superiors recommending priority DNA processing for Monroe's sample due to stable preservation. The cold case office approved immediately, viewing it as a pilot for the new project. With procedures complete, Morales closed the electronic file, noting results expected within 6 weeks. The handkerchief that had lain dormant in storage for over half a century now became the first evidence in the Dallas cold case re-examination program. In that day's work log, Morales wrote the final line, 6218C, reopened for testing. Results due June 2013. When the test results from the Texas State Forensic Lab in Austin arrived at Dallas PD in early June 2013, nearly 6 weeks after the sample was received. The 12-page report included microscopic photos and DNA sequence analysis tables. The first line in the conclusion section stated clearly, biological sample from evidence, E47B, contains male human DNA, blood type O+, no match with victim Katherine Monroe's profile. The CODIS database comparison yielded a partial match with a 1978 blood donation sample from the National Donor Program. Donor named Alan Reeves, address in Garland, Texas. The report also noted that although the DNA sample was old, the gene sequence was sufficiently intact for individual identification with 99.87% accuracy. The forensic analyst's final note stated, high match probability, recommend contacting local personnel or medical archives for background verification. Upon receiving the report copy, Detective Sarah Morales immediately cross-referenced information in the original file. The name Alan Reeves appeared multiple times in old records, once in his own 1962 statement, once in Assistant DA Claire Herzog's notes, and 3 times in internal police reports on the gun cleaning accident. Each entry now seemed connected to the latest test results. Morales backed up the DNA report, clipping it with the copy of the 1962 Dallas PD internal medical file, documenting Reeves's left palm injury on June 9, 1962, just hours after Katherine Monroe vanished. She reread the physician's description, circular wound, suspected from hot metal object. Placing the two documents side by side, the link became evident: male blood on the handkerchief, type O+, matching Reeves's group. Reeves's injury consistent with blood transfer from gunshot or hot metal contact. Morales drafted a preliminary report sent directly to Cold Case Division leadership, with a formal request to reopen the Monroe investigation. In the report, she outlined 3 grounds: 1, DNA confirming blood belonged to Alan Reeves; 2, evidence properly preserved, seal intact, no contamination risk; 3, Reeves directly linked to victim via 1962 engagement records and statements. The report was submitted June 5 and approved by superiors within 3 days, forwarded to the Dallas DA's office for supplemental verification warrants. While awaiting response, Morales contacted Dallas PD personnel to check Reeves's status. Data showed he retired in 1983. Personnel file retained in old archives. The health record confirmed blood type O+, and noted minor left palm injury 1962, no lasting effects. Morales saw these details aligned perfectly with the current forensic report. She prepared a second memo summarizing all evidence, stating, same individual Alan Reeves appears in 2 independent datasets, 1962 medical file and 2013 DNA sample. For reinforcement, she requested the Texas State Health Data Center extract Reeves's 1978 donation record for origin confirmation. 1 week later, official response arrived: 1978 blood donation record, Alan Reeves, born 1934, blood type O+, residing Garland, Texas. DNA comparison, full match with evidence 6218C, the document's final line stamped, match probability, 1 in 7.2 billion. Morales photocopied all documents, creating a new file coded reopened, Monroe 6218C 2013. She sent copies to the DA with a request to reopen as criminal investigation, as new evidence showed the victim could not have left voluntarily, as concluded in 1962. On June 18, the first cold case team meeting minutes recorded the DNA results as evidence reorienting investigative direction. Technical specialists were assigned to re-examine all old evidence for additional recoverable biological data. That same day, Morales returned to archives for full original document review. She discovered the 1962 evidence log noted handover by Det. A.F. Dillard, signed June 17, the day the handkerchief was submitted. The unbroken chain of custody proved the sample was unaltered, strengthening the DNA's legal value. After verification, she wrote in her work log, DNA confirms evidence belongs to Reeves. Need full re-verification of 1962 medical and statement records. On June 20, Morales visited Dallas PD Central Archives holding old internal reports. In Reeves's personnel file, she found the original June 9, 1962, nurse's report, matching Dillard's prior citation, with Reeves's signature. This document had never been publicized. She copied it as supplemental evidence. Reading the physician's final note, possible hot gun barrel, Morales paused, cross-referencing the handkerchief blood description. In her mind, the 1962 events pieced together: undetermined disappearance, fresh paint in Reeves's home, now matching DNA. Each previously overlooked detail formed a cohesive picture. She ended that day's final report with a concise line: blood origin identified, Alan Reeves. It was the first time in over 50 years that the Katherine Monroe case officially listed a directly involved individual in the suspect column. After DNA confirmation, Dallas PD coordinated with the district attorney's office to authorize supplemental scene survey at the former Alan Reeves residence, now under new ownership. The house was on the South City edge, Brookside Lane, in a quiet neighborhood built in the early 1960s. Current owners, a young couple who purchased in 2004, consented to legal police inspection. In July 2013, the crime scene technical team and forensics unit were deployed, supervised directly by Detective Sarah Morales. The objective was ground-penetrating radar to scan floors and backyard for irregular modifications during the case period. Prior to scanning, the survey team created detailed diagrams, cross-referencing 1959 construction blueprints from building records. Data showed the original house had one floor and small basement. Basement concrete slab listed at 4-inch thickness, standard material. Morales ordered full basement scan, starting at the stairbase, where DA Claire Herzog noted a dark streak in 1962. The GPR device used low-frequency waves to detect subsurface density changes. In the initial sweep, screen images showed mostly uniform flooring, but near the west wall, about 2 meters from the stairbase, anomalous returns appeared, stronger wave bounce indicating thicker material. Preliminary results showed concrete depth in that area over 8 inches, nearly double the original. The technical team confirmed this could be post-construction cement pour. Morales immediately sealed the house, cordoned the basement, and requested excavation warrant. 2 days later, approval came, and test digging began. Technicians used handheld concrete saws to open a 1 square meter square at the marked spot. Removing the top cement layer revealed underlying concrete darker gray with more gravel, unlike original pour. Excavation proceeded cautiously, debris vacuumed and bagged per layer. At about 25 centimeters depth, the steel blade hit something hard. The team switched to hand tools and soon noted darker soil below with organic remnants. As soil was removed, human skeletal structure emerged, skull and shoulder bones, lying on left side toward the wall. Morales logged discovery time, 10:47 a.m., July 18, 2013, and called forensics to assume scene control. Excavation lasted over 6 hours. Expanding the upper pit revealed a nearly intact adult skeleton in old cement-mixed soil with personal items. Near the skull, technicians recovered broken sunglasses, yellowed plastic frame, beside the sternum, a small silver necklace with oval pendant engraved KM. A few inches away, a rusted 9mm bullet. All items were photographed, numbered, and sealed on site. Forensics identified female remains, height about 5'3", matching Katherine Monroe's 1962 description. Bone samples were taken for mitochondrial DNA, skull CT scanned for facial reconstruction. Meanwhile, necklace and sunglasses were cleaned non-invasively to preserve condition. Preliminary forensics report concluded, body buried under supplemental cement layer, no coffin or wrapping. Third right rib shows small circular perforation, likely from 9mm projectile impact. On July 25, mitochondrial DNA results arrived. Extracted bone sequence matched the living sister of Katherine Monroe with 99.99% probability. Official conclusion: female remains at Brookside Lane identified as Katherine Monroe. The report was sent directly to Dallas PD cold case and the DA's office. Morales added new evidence to file 6,218 C-2013, sunglasses, necklace, bullet, bone samples. The entire process was video recorded, stored in the electronic evidence management system. In the consolidated report, she stated, discovery location matches 1962 noted dark streak. Supplemental cement shows short-term pour post-disappearance. Physical evidence confirms intentional concealment. The report was submitted to leadership recommending case upgrade from undetermined cause missing to homicide, intentional concealment. By late July 2013, after over 50 years, the Katherine Monroe case was officially confirmed as murder, and the Brookside Lane house became the latest crime scene ever excavated in Dallas PD history. Immediately after the excavation results and DNA identification were confirmed, Detective Sarah Morales began the next step, tracking down individuals involved in the original 1962 investigation to verify file origins. In the Dallas PD archives, the supervising prosecutor was listed as Assistant DA Claire Herzog. Administrative records showed she retired in 1989 and now lived in Austin. Morales sent a contact letter explaining the need to clarify archive documents and requesting an in-person meeting for original comparison. 1 week later, Herzog agreed to meet at her home. The meeting took place on an August 2013 morning in a quiet small house, walls covered with old commendations and a few photos from the 1960s Dallas County Courthouse. Claire Herzog, then 77, retained a slow speech and clear presentation. When Morales outlined the new findings, she was silent for a long time before saying, "I still have the original file copy, the unedited one." After a few minutes, she returned with an old paper file box, cover faintly labeled Monroe, copy Herzog. The yellowed pages were carefully clipped, edges taped with clear adhesive. Morales opened the file, comparing each entry to the department's archived copy. On page 2, Detective Dillard's Reeves residence scene report showed clear differences from the official 1962 version. In Herzog's copy, under Observations, a handwritten line read, "Small blood spot on stair wall, dark brown, possibly wiped but smudged residue. Note, strong bleach odor." In the archived official version, this line was entirely absent, replaced by "no abnormalities, house kept clean." Morales pointed to the deleted section, asking Herzog the reason. She nodded slowly. "After I submitted my initial report to leadership, a week later, I was called into the Criminal Division Chief's office. He said the case lacked evidence and would be closed. When I asked about the original report, they said it would be edited to fit the administrative conclusion." She paused, then added, "I knew something was wrong, so I backed up everything before they reclaimed the original." Morales continued to the appendix with the evidence log. In Herzog's copy, the entry listed white handkerchief embroidered KM, blood type O, while the official read white handkerchief, unknown origin. Below was a blue ink note, handed to evidence vault, June 17, 62. Morales recognized Dillard's handwriting, matching signatures in other reports. Herzog confirmed, yes, his writing. Frank Dillard didn't want to close the file, but he was forced to sign because superiors said no crime without a body. When asked why the case closed so quickly, she replied directly, "Alan Reeves was police. We didn't say it out loud, but some in positions tried to protect him. No one wanted an internal scandal." Morales noted every word, scanning altered pages with a portable scanner. Herzog also showed a handwritten internal memo she wrote in December 1962, sent to the DA's office, but never answered. It read, "Recommend not closing Monroe case due to outstanding blood evidence questions. Future Reeves personnel blood comparison needed if technology allows." The faded paper had a clear signature in the left corner. Morales requested copying permission. Herzog agreed. As the discussion ended, Herzog said, "I always thought about that girl. We had no tools to prove anything, and weren't allowed to do more. The system then was different from now. You're lucky to have DNA. We only had instinct." Morales thanked her and closed the file. Before leaving, Herzog handed a small envelope containing 3 blurry Polaroid photos showing the Reeves staircase with a dark wall patch. She said, "I kept these 3 from the original. No one knew I reshot them." Morales accepted, numbered, and sealed them. Back at headquarters, she compared all documents to the electronic file. The deletions and new photos confirmed intentional alterations during closure. She drafted a consolidated report listing all discrepancies. 1 original described blood spot. Edited version omitted. 2 original noted KM block, embroidery. Edited removed. 3 no closure order, signed by prosecutor, only investigation chief's signature. In the conclusion, Morales wrote, 1962 file confirmed edited and case closed due to internal influence. Evidence indicates omission or procedural interference. The report was sent directly to Cold Case Division, with digital copies of Herzog's entire file becoming the first administrative evidence proving misconduct in the Katherine Monroe case. After completing the 1962 file comparison and obtaining documents from Claire Herzog, Detective Sarah Morales continued reviewing the list of individuals directly connected to Alan Reeves at the time of the incident. In the old personnel file, the next of kin section listed his mother, Mrs. Evelyn Reeves, as residence guarantor. Latest administrative data showed she was still alive, 94 years old, residing in a Garland nursing home about 30 miles from Dallas. Morales sent a formal interview request with Cold Case Division approval. The meeting was arranged for late August 2013 in the facility's private room, where Evelyn had lived for years. When Morales explained the purpose, she nodded lightly, unsurprised. Her voice was weak but clear. "I knew someday someone would ask about it." The conversation lasted nearly 2 hours, audio recorded per procedure, with a nurse present. Morales began with basic questions about June 1962. Evelyn said she lived with her son in the Brookside Lane house, just the two since her husband died years earlier. When asked about the evening of June 8th, she recalled visiting a neighbor to watch TV. Returning around 9 p.m., when I entered, Alan wasn't home. I waited. Around 10:30 I heard the car pull up. He came through the back door, shirt soiled, smelling of bleach and gunpowder. She described her son as tense, saying briefly, "Something happened at work." She asked if he was hurt. He raised his left hand, showing a white gauze bandage on the palm. When she pressed further, he went silent, heading straight to the basement with tools and old cement. I heard him dragging buckets and pouring something. I didn't go down that night, afraid to disturb. The next morning, she woke to the open basement door and strong, fresh cement smell. "I asked," he said, fixing a foundation crack. Morales probed details. Evelyn affirmed clear memory due to the intense odor lasting days. Afterward, she saw her son hand-washing clothes in the tub, unusual for him. The shirt water was murky, brownish red. "I offered help," he said, "no need." When asked about anything else unusual, she said, "Yes, a small cloth bag, heavy." I asked what was in it. He said, "Papers." She didn't touch it, only noting the bag later vanished. When asked if she ever suspected something serious, Evelyn was silent long before answering. "I thought so, but I'm his mother." I didn't dare ask. In the interview's final part, Morales showed current house photos and excavation results. She stared long, eyes tearing, then said, "I always knew something was down there. I heard him pouring cement all morning after, then saying the foundation was stronger." When asked why she never spoke before, she replied, "Who would believe me? He was police. I was just an old lady. They asked me that year. I said I knew nothing. And I stayed silent since." She signed the full statement, handwriting shaky but legible. Before ending, she requested adding one sentence to the record: "I speak now to end this, not to harm anyone, just for the truth to be recorded." Morales re-recorded it, filing with the official case. Leaving the facility, she immediately drafted a summary report to Cold Case Division. In the narrative, she wrote, "Witness Evelyn Reeves, 94, mother of suspect Alan Reeves, confirms on June 8, 1962 night, son returned with soiled clothes and bleach smell. Next morning, cemented basement, hand-washed brownish red stained shirt. Statement aligns with 2013 discovery scene." The report was verified and appended to File 6218C 2013. Evelyn Reeves's testimony became the final witness evidence in the Katherine Monroe case, documented in writing and audio, uniting over 50 years of scattered facts into a cohesive picture. After collecting full statements and evidence, Dallas PD coordinated with the district attorney's office to complete procedures for an official summons against Alan Reeves. At this point, he was 79 years old, living in Garland, Texas, in a small single-story house where he had moved after retiring nearly 30 years earlier. On December 10, 2013, Detective Sarah Morales and 2 Cold Case Division officers arrived at the Garden Oaks Drive address to conduct the regulated interview. The session took place at the home, with a public defender present. Morales began by stating the purpose, informing that this was a voluntary interview in the reopened Katherine Monroe disappearance investigation. Reeves agreed to respond, voice slow, low, clear, but wary. In the audio recording, his voice was hoarse, with long pauses between sentences. Morales placed the file folder in front of him, On top, the forensic report copy and recovered evidence photos from the scene. She started with a simple question: "Do you remember June 8, 1962? Reeves was silent for a long time before saying, "A long time ago, but I remember. It was the weekend." Morales turned to the next document page, presenting the 1962 sealed handkerchief DNA test results, stating the blood sample matched Reeves's DNA. He looked at the paper, no reaction, only asking softly, "Are you sure?" Morales replied, "We are certain. 99.87% match. Additionally, we excavated your Brookside Lane house." She slid toward him the photo of the silver necklace engraved KM and the scene image showing remains under the cement floor. Reeves looked down for a long time, hands trembling slightly, then leaned back in the chair. "So she really was there," he said quietly, almost whispering. Morales did not respond, only noting the reaction in the report. After a few minutes of silence, Reeves continued, "I didn't mean to. We argued. She got angry. I did too. I pulled the gun to scare her, didn't know it was loaded. Just one shot." This statement was marked in the audio as admission statement, the first confession. Morales asked him to detail the events. Reeves said that afternoon, he went to Catherine's house to discuss postponing the wedding due to financial issue. The conversation quickly turned to argument. She said I was overbearing. I said she didn't understand my job. Then she said she'd leave Dallas, that the wedding was off. He paused, voice faltering. I saw red. I brought the gun from the car, thought just to scare her. Per the statement, when Katherine tried to leave, he grabbed her arm, gun pointed at the floor, but fired. She fell. I didn't think it was that bad, but blood was everywhere. I panicked. Reeves said he tried to call but the house phone line was dead. Then everything happened fast. He said he dragged her to the basement, found something to cover. I mixed cement, thought to bury temporarily, then report later, but I never did. When Morales asked why not report to police or superiors, he answered, I was police. I knew what would happen if they found her in my house. He said in the following days, he filed false reports, claiming she left voluntarily, and hand-washed the shirt because it had blood. Morales showed him the 1962 medical report, noting circular left palm wound from hot metal object. Reeves nodded, gun recoiled, I got barrel burn. When asked why remained silent over half a century, he replied, at first I thought I'd confess after my mother passed, but time went on. Each year a little, I told myself it was too late. Morales requested verbal confirmation that Katherine Monroe died from his gunshot, and he concealed the body in the basement. Reeves looked directly at the recorder, saying slowly, yes, I shot her. I buried her in the house. No one helped me. This response was recorded in the report and signed for confirmation in the attorney's presence. After the interview, Morales transferred the full file to the district prosecutor. On December 18, 2013, Dallas County Court approved the arrest warrant for Alan Reeves on 2 charges: manslaughter and corpse concealment. Police arrived at his home that morning, served the warrant, and read Miranda rights. Reeves did not resist. He was transported to Dallas Detention Center for booking, mugshot, and fingerprinting. In the booking photo, his face was gaunt, hair white, but eyes unusually calm. In the official report, Morales wrote, suspect Reeves arrested after confessing to shooting Katherine Monroe on June 8, 1962, and burying victim in private residence basement. Physical evidence and DNA confirmed statement. File 6218C, shifted from cold case to homicide solved. The Dallas PD internal bulletin that day noted briefly, 1962 cold case, suspect in custody. After over half a century, the Katherine Monroe disappearance officially ended the investigative phase with the arrest of the responsible party. The trial of Alan Reeves opened at Dallas County Court on March 17, 2014. Due to poor health, he was transported by ambulance, seated in a wheelchair, wearing an orange jumpsuit, trembling hands on his knees. The small courtroom was packed with media, former Dallas PD personnel, and Katherine Monroe's remaining family, her sister, now nearly 70. The district prosecutor presented the indictment on 2 charges, manslaughter and corpse concealment, based on the recorded confession, DNA results, and scene evidence. Defense counsel did not contest evidence presentation, only requesting consideration of mitigating factors, age, frail health, and elapsed time. After 2 brief days of questioning, Reeves stood, voice hoarse and slow. "I have nothing more to say except I'm sorry. I lived my whole life with this." His words silenced the room. The prosecutor reread the final interview transcript line. "I shot her. I buried her in the house. No one helped me." Reeves confirmed the statement accurate and signed the plea document. After the judge's closed deliberation, the sentence was pronounced. Alan Reeves guilty of second-degree manslaughter and corpse concealment, total 25 years imprisonment. As the verdict was read, Katherine's sister teared up, whispering, "Finally, my sister has been found." Reeves showed no reaction, only nodding, eyes vacant. He was returned to Texas State Prison to serve the sentence. In November that year, 8 months post-trial, Alan Reeves died in the prison medical unit from cardiovascular complications, aged 80. His death was logged in administrative reports, and the Katherine Monroe case was officially closed. However, the case's impact extended far beyond a verdict. In April 2014, Dallas PD launched an internal review of over 300 pending cold cases from the 1950s, 1970s, to identify potential procedural errors. A committee of forensic experts, prosecutors, and community representatives was formed for oversight. The initial internal report, nearly 200 pages, confirmed that in many old cases, evidence was overlooked, lacked storage protocols, or had no chain of custody logs. The Katherine Monroe case was cited as a prime example of internal influence and administrative interference, distorting investigative conclusions. At a press conference on April 28, 2014, current Dallas PD Chief Raymond Ortiz stated, "We acknowledge serious flaws in 1960s procedures. The system then lacked independent oversight, and internal protection turned a homicide into a missing person closure." He bowed in apology to the Monroe family before media cameras. Simultaneously, the Dallas Morning News ran a front-page story headlined, "Dallas 1962 Cold Case Solved, Arrest Shocks Community." The article detailed the over-half-century investigation, from Katherine's disappearance, the blood-stained handkerchief discovery, to DNA breaking the case. A small subheadline read, "A Romance, a Mistake, and 51 Years of Silence." In commentary, the paper wrote, "Not just a solved case, but a lesson in systemic accountability, where silence spanned 2 generations." Local TV channels replayed features, calling it Dallas history's longest cold case cracked by DNA. Hundreds of Dallas residents sent thank-you letters to the Cold Case Division and Detective Sarah Morales. She declined personal interviews, saying briefly at a press event, "Technology is just a tool. The truth was always there, waiting for someone brave enough to reopen the file." Post-case, Morales was nominated for Dallas PD's Special Service Medal, and the Texas DA's office awarded the cold case team Excellence in Justice. In the department's year-end report, the Katherine Monroe case was marked green, symbol for cold case solved. The nearly 600-page file, including all originals, new reports, DNA results, and witness statements, was sealed and archived centrally under Code 6218C 2013. On the cover noted, "Reopened 2013, closed 2014. Beside it, a small handwritten line, "Time 51 years. In the final appendix, the DA's office log read, "File closure date December 29, 2014. Status, homicide, solved. Defendant, Alan Reeves, deceased while serving sentence." No further prosecution. The Monroe family later held a small memorial at the city cemetery, placing a stone engraved, "Katherine Monroe 1940-1962. Finally home. At the service her sister spoke, "My sister was buried under cement, but the truth could not stay buried forever." That evening, many downtown Dallas buildings lit blue strips, the cold case unit symbol, to honor the half-century closed case. In the annual summary, Dallas PD's final line on the matter, File 6218C closed after 51 years. One case, one generation, and one belated apology. The Katherine Monroe case is not merely a criminal file closed after over half a century, but a mirror reflecting the values and challenges of modern American justice. From the 1960s, when law enforcement power sometimes outweighed truth, to 2013. When DNA cracked the case, we see the evolution of the U.S. justice system from a closed culture influenced by internal hierarchy to a society valuing transparency and accountability. Alan Reeves, a police officer being shielded for decades, highlights the real risk when power lacks oversight. Only when individuals like Detective Sarah Morales, representing a new generation of investigators, dared reopen files, using science over bias, could justice fulfill its mission. For today's America, this story reminds that truth never vanishes, only buried until someone courageous digs it up. The practical lesson: justice must rest on integrity and persistence, independent of time or system status. Every citizen, police, prosecutor, or ordinary person bears responsibility to question wrongs, because silence, as chosen by 1962 Dallas PD leadership, can leave an innocent forgotten for half a century. In a modern America, debating trust in public institutions, the Monroe story reminds that true justice comes not from the system, but from people willing to act for it. If you believe truth always finds a way, subscribe to the channel to join us in continuing the journey of reopening files thought forever buried. Thank you for following the Katherine Monroe story. See you in the next video, where justice awakens again from the dust of time.